Welcome back to the Tool Crib. Today we're going to be talking about the Leatherman Surge, my personal EDC. This is the multi-tool that I have carried since it came out in 2005. I went from first generation to second generation, and it's getting a little dated now, and hopefully Leatherman is at least thinking about updating the Leatherman Surge into the third generation. Hopefully we'll see. But with the advent of the Leatherman Garage, wherein it's kind of been made clear to us that they're going to be revamping older model tools, maybe coming out with some newer designs. So I thought I'd give some input on what I think they could do to the Leatherman Surge to make it an even better multi-tool. So on the table, I have my modified Leatherman Surge, and I have a playlist where I did all this. If you're interested in checking that out, I'll put a link to it right here. So what you could tell with this one is I've added an extra tool to one side of this. Now I had to do a little bit of rearranging, and I had to reprofile like the bottle cap lifter and this driver in order to get that fourth tool in there. And I took the inspiration for that from this tool, well, actually a couple of tools. So here is the Victorinox Electrician, and what I wanted was to have that curved blade in there more so than anything. That curved blade is actually very good for cutting on sheathing on cable, and so it's something that I do, a task that I do, not necessarily all day every day, but I do it enough that it warranted having that particular function on this multi-tool. So I think having that in there into the chisel that I made really worked out well for me. Now, the inspiration for the chisel came from the Victorinox lineup as well. This is one thing I really like about the Victorinox Spirit models and the Swiss tool models, is they include a chisel. Now the chisel on the Spirit has a little bit different grind profile than that of the Swiss tool, the normal one. And also you can see that the Swiss tool has this integrated cable cutter as well, where the Spirit, I'm sorry, the Swiss tool, they do it a little bit differently. I'm not sure why they do this particular configuration. I actually like this one a lot better, which has the cable cutter. It has the wire stripper integrated into here, which wouldn't be necessary in the Leatherman because it's in a different position. But they have the chisel or scraping tool, which is incredibly handy. And this one also can work as a bit of a package opener because they profile the inside edge as well. Now, Leatherman has done pretty much the same thing. I'll have to get it out here with their latest multi-tool from the Leatherman Garage. So give me just 1 second. And they have done this with this tool. This is on the Leatherman Mr. Crunch. And they have done kind of similar to what Victorinox did, except they just kind of did it in their own style. This tool is quite a bit thicker, but they do have a double profiled edge here. So they have the chisel tip, which has a lot steeper angle than even that of the Spirit model, and it has that side profile as well. Though I prefer the one that's on the Spirit. You can see that it comes more to a sharper point out there on the edge than this one does. So this is one tool that I think they could add to the Leatherman Surge by reprofiling the thicknesses of some of the interior tools, because I don't think it's really necessary to have them quite as thick as what they actually do. This driver, a lot of people may consider to be redundant, that it can be switched out. I find this one to be useful at times, so I'm not necessarily advocating for removing it, but if it's necessary to remove it in order to add a chisel type tool that would include both profiled chisel tips and an integrated cutter, then I am more than willing to sacrifice that driver for that. The next area where I think they can improve the Leatherman Surge is in the Serrated Blade. Now, the Serrated Blade is one of those tools that some people get a lot of use out of, others would just as well see it eliminated. I personally use that Serrated Blade quite a little bit, and so I definitely am in the camp that for leaving it on there and modifying it to make it a little bit more useful than it already is. So the one thing we were talking about was the chisel. Now, with the Leatherman Free P4 and the P2, well, actually the P4, because in the P2 it doesn't have this blade. But with the Leatherman Free P4, they actually added a scraping tip to the front of it. Now, I wish they would have left that a little more squared off, not quite as steep of an angle, so that it would work really well as a scraping tool in combination with the serrated blade, which is also a really well profiled serrated blade. Or they could do it like they do in the Leatherman Charge, where they add the cutting hook on the back of the blade instead of the chisel tip. I personally would advocate for not necessarily if it's too much trouble to add in a chisel into the normal tools and reprofile those other tools, then I think the one thing that I would like to have is the chisel tip as opposed to the cable cutting ability, because you can still get that task done with a knife, but a lot of times you cannot do with a knife what you can with a chisel. And so I would definitely like to see them reprofile this blade so that it doesn't have quite as steep of an angle as this, leaves that profiled edge, and then it also would work with the front tip there as a draw cutter and as a better package opener as well, a more controlled cutting for a package opening. The next thing that I think they could do with the Leatherman Surge is something that I feel that's in desperate need of, is a blade upgrade. Even if they were to make a premium version of the Surge and then keep their standard version, one of the things I think they definitely need to do is change the 420HC blade that you find in the standard Leatherman Surge, and at minimum move it up to the 154 cm or the S30V that you'll find in various Charge models. Knife blade on this knife, if you can improve that, oh man, that would make a huge difference for the end users. I personally like the 154 cm. It gets enough blade retention where it's a really decent knife, but it's still quite easy to sharpen up whenever you need to. It's not quite as hard as the S30V blade. So a knife blade is definitely an area where I think Leatherman could improve the Leatherman Surge. Now, setting aside all the other things that I would like to see change with the Leatherman Surge, I think this is probably the number one thing that I would like to see change, and that is the pliers themselves. Now, with the Leatherman Surge plier, they come down to a decent enough tip. They're more of a boxy, squared off needle nose, which work well in industrial applications, but needle nose have their limitations. And so they're not quite as profiled and as smooth as something you're going to find in the Wave Charge series of tools, which I think works well with a needle nose. I would personally advocate for not profiling this, grinding this angled into here, leaving this full width, and making this more like a combination plier. So here I have a set of Knipex, a small combination plier. I think this would be the best thing they could do for the Surge, is to shorten that up just a little bit, leave it full width there, but obviously it would have to be narrower than what that of the Knipex is in order to fit into the body of the Surge. But if they left that at the full width, the max width they could for the Surge, and put it as a blunt nose, to make it more of a combination plier, I can tell you that in industrial applications you get a lot more use out of a plier like this than you will a needle nose. Now, there are times where needle nose comes in extremely handy, but I think it would serve better in a tool like the Leatherman Surge, which I feel is geared more towards the heavier users, industrial applications, guys that are on construction sites or in industrial plants, blue-collar guys. So I think that the combination plier would probably be the best upgrade they could possibly do to the Leatherman Surge. So these are just a few of the ideas that I have where I think Leatherman could improve the Leatherman Surge. Now, maybe they have some of their own in-house designs. Maybe they've already thought about some different tooling or ways to improve the Leatherman Surge. I know the update from the Gen 1 to the Gen 2 Surge was a vast improvement. It worked out really well. It made it more of an industrial tool, one that you would see on a job site or in a plant, as opposed to an everyday carry tool. And I think that's where the Leatherman Surge is best suited as an industrial application or in the blue-collar world. And it's one of the reasons why I carry it. I think it's the best multi-tool out there. But it could be tweaked a little bit to make it even better. And if nothing else, I think the number one thing they can do is to change the pliers. And I want to bring in the Victorinox real quick to end this, because Victorinox already kind of does this with their Swiss tool. It's not quite a blunt nose, but this is actually a better plier tip overall than the needle nose, in my opinion, except for the cutters. I don't like the cutters. I never have how they integrate the cutters on the Victorinox Swiss tool with that dual notch. Something I never have liked. But Leatherman could do something similar in their multi-tool to make it more of a blunt nose, and I think that is the absolute number one thing that they could do to improve it, to make it even stronger than what it already is. Well, my name is Ben. You've been watching the Texas Tool Crib. I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you in the next one.